Mexican records got the lights down low. Souldisco where the groovy people go. Hit play, let the music flow. Old school beats with a modern glow.
Hello everybody and a very warm welcome back to the latest episode of Hidden Jewels of Soul and Disco. I do hope you're doing absolutely fantastic. In this week's episode I'm featuring the one and only, the legendary Baby Huey.
So I play the part I feel they want of me, and I pull the shade so I won't see them seeing me.
Baby Huey is one of those artists whose recorded material is small, but whose impact still feels surprisingly large. His real name was James Thomas Remy, and he was born on August the 17th in 1944 in Richmond, Indiana. And he died on October the 28th in 1970 in Chicago. Yes, he was only 26 years old. His only album, The Baby Huey Story, The Living Legend, was released after his death and is now considered a cult record between soul, funk, psychedelic soul, and rare groove. The name Baby Huey came from the Paramount cartoon character of the same name, a giant baby duck. James Remy was severely overweight because of a glandular condition. Contemporary newspaper articles described him as weighing around 350 to 400 pounds, while later accounts also mention a height of around 6'4". Remy did not hide that physical presence. He turned it into part of his stage identity. A nickname that could have sounded like a joke became a statement on stage. Baby Huey understood very clearly how people reacted to him. He took the audience's first impression and turned it around. On stage, he reportedly introduced himself with the words, "I'm Big Baby Huey and I'm 400 pounds of soul." That was not just humor, it was control over his own image. He refused to be reduced to his size and turned it into energy, presence, and self-confidence. Baby Huey was not only a singer who worked through a beautiful voice, he was a frontman, big, striking, widely dressed, with an afro and a presence that immediately drew attention. His size may have been the first thing people noticed, but it was not the reason they stayed. Once he started singing, it was no longer about his appearance. It was about the voice, heavy, raw, powerful, and full of soul. James Remy gained his first musical experience as a teenager. During his school years, he sang in a group called the Vets. In 1963, he moved to Chicago. The city was a major center of blues, gospel, soul, and rhythm and blues in the 1960s. For a young singer with an unusual voice, Chicago was the right place. It was a city where you had to prove yourself in clubs, in front of audiences who could immediately tell whether someone was just unusual or truly had something to offer. When Baby Huey arrived in Chicago in 1963, his band was still much smaller. What began as a 4-piece group eventually developed into Baby Huey and the Babysitters, a large live band with up to 10 musicians. Important early members included organist and trumpeter Melvin Deacon James and guitarist Johnny Ross. The Babysitters were not a polished vocal group. By no means. They were a loud, hard-hitting stage band with horns, rhythm section, organ, guitar, and a singer who stood somewhere between a soul shouter, a gospel preacher, and a rock frontman. The beginning was not glamorous. The band played small clubs for years and built its sound on stage. One important place was the Chicago club Thumbs Up. There, the group developed a loyal audience. That club work explains the band's latest sound. Baby Huey and the Babysitters did not sound like a studio project assembled for a record. They sounded like a band that had grown in front of live audiences. By the time he died, Baby Huey had already collected around 8 years of life experience. That's important because his recording career looks very short when you only look at the singles and the album. On stage, Baby Huey was not a beginner. He had years of performance behind him, playing with his band in clubs, on college stages and in larger venues. His reputation did not begin with an album. It began with live shows. In the mid-60s, the first singles appeared. In 1964, Messin' with the Kid was released with Just Being Careful on the B-side on Sham. In 1965, that same pairing was reissued on the USA label. Also, in 1965, Monkey Man came out with Back Me on St. Louis. In 1966, Monkey Man was paired again with Messin' with the Kid on Satellite. These early singles were not major hits, but they show the roots of his sound. They are raw, club-based, and still closer to rhythm and blues than to funk. Monkey Man shows this early side especially well, and you know what? Let's have a listen. He had big feet and a year-round jazz. The song has punch, a dirty R&B character, and a garage soul edge. You can hear a band that was probably even stronger live than on record. And these early recordings are not perfectly polished productions. There are snapshots of a band developing its sound through club work. The question is, why was there no album for such a long time, even though the band's reputation was growing? One possible explanation is their live work. Baby Huey and the Babysitters were in demand, played regularly, and could make money through performances. Maybe there was less pressure to rush into a full LP. The band worked first and foremost as a live act. Their name grew not through a large album campaign, but through physical stage energy. The band did not remain only a Chicago phenomenon for long. Their success in the city led to appearances in New York, including well-known clubs such as Truth Hellers and the Cheetah. There, they were no longer seen only as a curiosity because of Baby Huey's size. Promoters and producers realized that behind that image was a serious band with a big sound. One especially unusual episode even took the band to Paris. According to a contemporary report, a member of the Rothschild family heard Baby Huey and the Babysitters at Truth Hellers in New York. After that, the whole band was brought to Paris to play at a party. For a singer from Richmond, Indiana, who had worked his way up through small clubs in Chicago, that was a remarkable jump. By the end of the 1960s, soul music was changing fast. Sly and the Family Stone opened soul towards funk, rock, and psychedelia. Funkadelic pushed even further into a darker, more experimental direction. Baby Huey and the Babysitters moved into the same world. Their shows became more striking, the music longer, more rhythmic, and freer. Baby Huey built rhythmic, almost spoken word passages into his performances. It was not rap yet, but it already had elements of direct address, stage speech, and physical performance. In 1969, the crucial connection to Cartom Records was made. Cartom was Curtis Mayfield's label. The contact came partly through Donny Hathaway, who was working as an arranger at Cartom at the time. Hathaway saw Baby Huey and the Babysitters live and was impressed. After that, Curtis Mayfield also became aware of Baby Huey. 1969, Baby Huey and the Babysitters finally auditioned for Carlton. Curtis Mayfield mainly wanted to sign Baby Huey himself. That later created tension with the Babysitters because live they were a unit. But in the studio, Baby Huey was being built more strongly as a solo artist. Still, the band sound remained essential. Without those musicians, Baby Huey's music would not have had the same scale. The Babysitters provided the foundation, groove, horns, pressure, and the live experience that can still be heard in the recordings. In March of 1969, Carlton released the single Mighty Mighty Children, subtitled Unite Yourself This Hour, split into part 1 and part 2. A later Jet article reported that the single had sold nearly 200,000 copies by early 1970s. Figures like that from a period press should be read with caution, but they show that Carlton saw real potential in Baby Huey. He was not just a singer on the edge of the scene. He was close to a larger breakthrough. At the same time, college calendars were filled up with shows. There were television appearances, growing industry interest, and plans for an album. The Baby Huey and the Babysitters were no longer being booked simply as a novelty act. His size may have created the first moment of attention, but the sound was the reason people wanted to see them. In 1970, work began on Baby Huey's debut album. It was produced by Curtis Mayfield. The album would later be called The Baby Huey Story, The Living Legend. 3 of the album tracks were interpretations of Curtis Mayfield's songs, including Hard Times, Mighty Mighty, and Runnin'. That means the record brings together 2 forces at the same time: Mayfield's songwriting and Baby Huey's heavy, raw voice. Baby Huey did not live to see the album released. He died on October 28th in 1970 in Chicago. The sources are not completely consistent about the cause of death. Contemporary articles spoke of a heart attack in his sleep or of natural causes. Later accounts mention his drug problems and speak of an overdose or related collapse. What is certain is that Baby Huey died only with 26 years old, before his first album could ever appear. Curtis Mayfield was still able to complete the album because Baby Huey had already recorded material before his death. Finished or nearly finished studio recordings existed. But the available material was limited. Later accounts suggest that in the end, there were only about 30 minutes of music that Baby Huey had completely recorded. Mayfield had to shape that material into a full LP after the fact. He added instrumental passages and used already recorded tracks to complete the album. So Curtis Mayfield did not build an album out of nothing. He had Baby Huey's voice, songs, arrangements, and studio recordings. But it was not an album Baby Huey could control to the end. He could not finish it, approve it, promote it, or bring it to the stage. That is why the Baby Huey Story, The Living Legend, is his only album. And here it is in all of its 70s glory. I show you, this is the front. I think it's an absolutely fantastic picture of Baby Huey, and this is the back with some additional pictures. If you watch that channel, I'm pretty sure you already heard about this album, and thankfully there are plenty of reissues out there. Why I'm mentioning this? Well, if you want to have an original copy of this album, nowadays it's at least a couple of hundreds of euros, once again depending on the condition. This is the first French version. I still didn't get hold of the first US version, but I'm pretty happy with the first French version, but also still not the cheapest version to get. So if you want to listen to Baby Huey on vinyl, once again, there are great reissues out there. You know, legend sometimes feels less like a perfectly planned debut, and more like a rescued document from a career that broke off in the middle of its rise. After his death, the story also took on a legal side. His mother, Ernestine Remy-Sain, received permission from the Cook County Circuit Court to examine records from the record companies. Baby Huey had died without a will, and his estate was unclear. The article mentioned Cartoon Records and its connection to Buddha Records. It shows that after his death, many questions remained open, not only musically, but also financially and legally. In February of 1971, the Baby Huey story, The Living Legend, was released posthumously on Cartoon Records. In the United States, the record came out with the catalog number Cartoon CRS 8007. In the United Kingdom and France, it was released through Buddha. The album became a debut and an archive of an artist who never got to experience his own breakthrough. The record opens with Listen to Me. The song runs for 6 minutes and immediately shows that Baby Huey was not meant to be squeezed into the format of a short soul single. The band builds an open groove, the horns add essence, and Baby Huey works his way through the arrangement with his voice. He does not just sing over the track, he pushes against it. The recording feels physical, almost like a fragment from a live show. Next comes Mama Get Yourself Together, written by Baby Huey himself. The song shows his heavy, direct soul side. No polish, no elegance for elegance sake, just pure pressure, seriousness and voice. The fact that Baby Huey wrote his own material is often underestimated. He was not only a singer of Curtis Mayfield's songs, he brought his own ideas. And one of the strongest moments on the album is A Change Is Gonna Come, a personal favorite of mine. The song, of course, comes from Sam Cooke and belongs to the great civil rights anthems of the 1960s. Baby Huey does not turn it into a cautious cover version. His version is more than 9 minutes long, more dramatic, wilder, and more gospel-driven. With Sam Cooke, the song sounds controlled and hopeful. With Baby Huey, it sounds like an eruption. The version brings together soul, gospel, pain, and psychedelia into one long, intense statement. On side 2 comes Mighty Mighty, written by Curtis Mayfield. The song shows the funkier side of the album. It's shorter, more direct, and more mobile than the long pieces, but still raw enough not to sound like a smooth cartoon production. Baby Huey brings a different heaviness to Mayfield's material than Curtis himself would have. The best known song on the album is, of course, Hard Times, also written by Curtis Mayfield. Hard Times is not only important because of later samples. The song feels like a dark look into the life of someone who feels watched, excluded, and threatened. It is not simply about difficult times in general sense. It is about fear, suspicion, pride, and the feeling of being a stranger in a city full of people. The groove is dry, the horn lines are tight, and the mood is dark. Baby Huey does not sing this song elegantly. He sounds tired, angry, and wounded at the same time. He does not describe hard times from the outside. He sounds as if he is standing right inside them. That is why the song hits so strongly. Hard Times was later rediscovered, especially through hip-hop samples. The song has atmosphere, tension, and a groove that attracts producers and DJs alike. Still, it should not be heard only as a sample source. Hard Times is also powerful as a soul recording because it shows how socially charged funk and soul could become at the beginning of the 1970s. It is a piece about pressure, outsiderhood, and a city where there seems to be no protection. With California Dreaming, the album takes a famous pop song by the Mamas and the Papas and pulls it into a completely different world. The sunny West Coast feeling becomes, in Baby Huey's hands, a heavy psychedelic soul version. The song shows how open music was at that time. Pop, rock, soul, and funk were no longer strictly separated spaces. Running is another Curtis Mayfield song, and it sounds like a hint of where Baby Huey could have gone musically. The song has groove, melody, and Mayfield's handwriting. But Baby Huey turns it into something more massive. A second album probably would have moved even deeper into funk and psychedelic soul. The final track, One Dragon, Two Dragon, was again written by Baby Huey himself. It shows once more his own creative side, because Baby Huey left behind only one album, and these self-written pieces matter. They show that this was not the documentation of a complete career, but the beginning of one. Commercially, the Baby Huey story, The Living Legend, was not a major success at the time. In the early 1970s, other names stood in the spotlight. Curtis Mayfield, Marvin Gaye, Isaac Hayes, Sly and the Family Stone, Funkadelic, and Stevie Wonder. Baby Huey moved into the background. His record did not become legendary through the charts, but through people who dug deeper later on. DJs, rare groove collectors, and hip-hop producers rediscovered the album. Hard Times received a second life, but Listen to Me and Mighty Mighty also became important. Samples and references later appeared with artists from hip-hop and electronic music. Baby Huey was not rediscovered through mainstream radio, but through record crates, producers, and the search for raw, untouched soul funk. It is also interesting that some musicians from the Babysitter circle continued after his death. There were attempts to keep the band going without Baby Huey at the times, even with a young Chaka Khan. That shows how much musical potential was inside this formation. Still, one thing was clear. The center of the band was Baby Huey. Without his voice, it was no longer the same force. That is why Baby Huey belongs in this series. His music is much bigger than his fame. Many people may know Hard Times. Some know the name from hip-hop samples list or rare groove circles, but the full story is often less familiar. The boy from Richmond, Indiana, who went to Chicago, the small clubs, Thumbs Up, the Babysitters, New York, Paris, the early singles, Cartum, Curtis Mayfield, Donny Hathaway, and an album that could only appear after his death. To get into Baby Huey, do not start and stop with Hard Times. The early singles like Monkey Man, Messing with the Kid, and Just Being Careful show the raw club sound of the 1960s. Mighty Mighty Children shows the transition to Carton. The Baby Huey story, The Living Legend, shows the artist who could have grown out of all those influences. Baby Huey was too raw for classic soul, too soulful for rock, and too wild for the mainstream. His music does not sound smooth, perfectly controlled or shaped for hit format. It sounds alive, heavy, and sometimes almost unrestrained. What remains are a few singles, one album, and a voice that still echoes. The Baby Huey story, The Living Legend, is debut and farewell at the same time. Baby Huey did not have much time, but he had enough intensity to remain unforgettable. And all I can say is, please check out the material from Baby Huey. I promise you, you won't be disappointed. Thanks for watching, and I catch you on the next one.